You know the scene. 20 kids, loud music, and a table full of cake and ice cream. After the plates are cleared, the volume doubles, the running starts, and the children start bouncing off the walls. Or think about Halloween night. They dump their pillowcases of candy on the living room floor, eat a few chocolate bars, and suddenly they are completely out of control. It's an undeniable sequence of events, and any parent will tell you exactly what caused it: the sugar. But the scientific consensus tells a different story. In 1995, the Journal of the American Medical Association published a massive meta-analysis combining 23 separate, rigorously controlled experiments on children's diets. Their final conclusion was blunt: sugar does not affect the behavior or cognitive performance of children. This creates an enormous paradox. If decades of clinical research prove that sugar has zero impact on behavior, why do millions of rational parents clearly remember seeing it happen in their own living rooms? The problem with human observation is the environment. If you watch a child at a birthday party, you are observing a brain highly stimulated by games, friends, presents, and noise. Those variables make it impossible to pinpoint what is actually driving their behavior. To strip away that environmental noise, scientists use randomized controlled trials. They take a large pool of children and randomly split them into two groups. One group gets real sugar, and the other gets an artificial placebo. In a double-blind trial, nobody knows who got the real thing: not the children, not the parents, and not the researchers. And when they measure activity levels hours later, the behavioral data between the two groups is completely identical. Because the biological effect of the sugar is zero, the frantic energy we see at parties has to be coming from somewhere else. As it turns out, the cause of the sugar high lives entirely in the minds of the parents. In 1994, researchers published a study in the Journal of Abnormal Child Psychology to test this exact dynamic. They recruited dozens of mothers who firmly believed their sons were sensitive to sugar. Then they gave every single child a placebo drink, sweetened only with aspartame. Curious tone. Here is where the researchers introduced a psychological test. They deliberately lied to half of the mothers, telling them their sons had just consumed a massive dose of real sugar. The results were entirely dependent on the mother's beliefs. The women who expected a sugar rush consistently rated their boys as hyperactive, actively hallucinating manic behavior in kids who were sitting calmly. The researchers filmed these interactions and found that the false expectation actually changed the mother's physical behavior. The women expecting a sugar high stayed closer to their kids, constantly hovering, criticizing, and trying to over-control perfectly normal behavior. When a child gets rowdy, it is usually just the sheer excitement of a fun social event. But if a parent expects sugar to amplify that energy, their own confirmation bias takes over, interpreting normal childhood excitement as a chemically induced high. Sugar does provoke a fast biological reaction in the body. It just happens to be the exact opposite of the chaotic rush we usually imagine. The human brain relies on glucose molecules as its primary source of energy, using them to power synapses and handle complex cognitive processing. In controlled environments, providing a moderate amount of sugar to a child can actually result in brief periods of improved memory, sharper focus, and better academic performance, a neurological reaction known as the glucose facilitation effect. Our biology evolved to utilize dietary sugar as a precise, functional fuel source for the brain. It is an energy supply, not a trigger for manic instability. That does not mean a bowl of candy is a healthy snack. While the short-term sugar rush is a myth, it distracts us from a much slower, more destructive process occurring over months and years. Consistent heavy consumption of sugary foods and sweetened beverages wreaks havoc on a developing metabolism. This dietary pattern is a proven primary driver of severe conditions like childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes. This 2020 meta-analysis found evidence linking chronic sugar consumption to systemic neurocognitive impairment. Specifically, this forest plot shows a strong relationship between high intake of sugar-sweetened beverages and increased risks of developing ADHD symptoms over time. The immediate wall-bouncing sugar high is nothing more than an enduring psychological illusion. The actual danger requires looking past the birthday party and protecting children from the long-term biological damage of a high-sugar diet.